Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Wednesday Leading Change this week with Steve Silbert. Hi, Steve. Welcome back.
Hi.
So, Steve, on Wednesdays, we talk about what I consider to be one of the underlying realities of being a Scrum Master, which is that of working with change. Could be a personal change, could be a team level change, could be an organizational change, or it could be our own change, of course. But change is kind of present in everything that we do. So walk us through one of those stories of change, a change process you were involved with, and then, help us to go through those steps, the tips, the tricks, the techniques you learned back then that you still apply today.
Sure. I would be remiss if I did not call out my good friend, Jessie Sternschus, because she taught me a lot about change, and a lot about change is unlearning bad habits. Call out to Jessie. I walked into a quasi-government agency, not really part of the government, but operated with the government. And they had been trying to re-platform their website to better serve the community. And it was a hardware, software, OS business process. So it was a holistic shift. And they'd been trying to do this for two and a half years and really not gotten any progress. So, walking around and observing, first thing, taking the time to observe the current state and look for the patterns of function and the patterns of dysfunction and disconnect. What I found was there were a lot of interdependencies, obviously hardware, software, OS, marketing, all this stuff that were not talking with each other. They were finger pointing. So with that, it was some of those things were as simple as inviting people from the other teams to quietly stand in the back of the room while we talk through a traditional status meeting. Now, I don't like status meetings. I like stand-ups. But you kind of have to start where they are. And they weren't ready to unlearn the status meeting and to learn the stand-up. So those that were closest to the campfire, that team, we went through the status meeting, and over a couple of days we did it. And now I'm in the group, I'm part of the family. And now it becomes easier to say, hey, can we try something different? So you teach them the 3 questions to stand up and say, what we're going to do is we'll only do this 15 minutes. It's no longer going to be an hour. How would that make you feel? And they're, of course, are like, yay, we love that. Love that idea. So having the other teams or change agents from some of the other teams just kind of standing in the background, watching what the status meeting looked like, and then watching what a stand-up looks like, immediately goes, we want some of that secret sauce too. So now you've got a team that has unlearned red, yellow, green, and has changed their mindset through some level of experimentation that they trusted me to say, let's try and experiment. And you start building trust, and that builds trust to get them to take the next step. So being one person in an organization of teams, you can spread yourself thin by going to one team and going deep, or you can be a little bit less effective and go very shallow, but across all the teams, or you identify your change agents, ask them to trust you enough to spend some time observing, and then go start working with their teams. So I was able to stagger and have one team that was basically the gold team, and they were the ones that were ahead in the change curve, and we cascaded out the rest of the teams through stand-ups, through learning about backlogs. And then within a relatively short period of time, within a month, we were able to start connecting backlogs. And that was the biggest problem that they had, was that the work that the teams were doing was not talking to each other. And the people that were figuring out what that work was not talking to each other. So within 2 months, we were able to stand up essentially a release train. I think this was probably pre-safe, essentially a release train. And in 6 months, we were able to get done what they could not do in 2.5 years.
Yeah. And this was just about understanding where the people gaps are and trying to overcome those. Of course, you did a lot of things. It's not as simple as I'm trying to put it right now. But one of the things that came out of that story that I wanted to highlight is this concept of helping others get what they want. Like you gave the example, like you have the status meeting. Hey, what about if we do this in 15 instead of an hour? And they go like, yeah, definitely, let's do that. Right. And then as they were succeeding, others were watching and saying, hey, we want that too. And then you help them. And it reminds me of an old Zig Ziglar quote. You can get everything in life you want if you will just help others get what they want. Right. And it sounds to me like for us as change agents, it's all about finding where can I help in a way that moves things forward. Now, of course, the trick here is that it might not move things forward as you want because you're helping others, but it moves things forward, and ultimately things will get better overall. And as you were describing, you close those gaps between the people that were not collaborating and now are finally collaborating. So that was my perspective. What do you want our listeners to take from this story?
The path is not mine, it's theirs. So I'm just the Sherpa. I'm just there to help guide them along the path. Now, I know what the destination look like. So I'm there to encourage them on the destination. That and actually more tactically and hardcore people thing is that I'm a firm believer that everyone always does the most important thing in their personal backlog right now. So right now, the most important thing in my life is to be talking with you. In an hour, it's going to be something completely different. But if there's a reason why I feel that this moment is important for me. And if something happened that something else became important, like my wife came in and said the house is flooding, well, guess what? I'm now going to do the most important thing for me, and that's going to go pump out the water out of the house. It's the same thing in the workplace. We're all like that, and everybody has reasons that they're running around trying to do 10 things at the same time. So the important thing is to figure out what's most important to each person, and once you figure that out, now you've got a key to helping them unlearn some of those things that's really causing them anguish and grief in the workplace, dysfunction, the lack of ability to deliver value continuously, a loss of safety, anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually a great way to put it. Thank you for that, Steve.
My pleasure.
Leading change is one of the core skills we must acquire, but it is only one of the steps towards our success as Scrum Masters. Tomorrow, on Success Thursday, we will talk about how to define success for the Scrum Master role. We'll cover tips on how to measure your way to that position, and most importantly, how to develop that focus on continuous improvement that is as important for Scrum Masters as it is for teams. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.